let me let Mike kick off the meeting, and then Ryan and I will go through all the things you need to know about meeting in this room, and then we'll jump in. Mike?
Good morning. Welcome. Hey, welcome to the October Hanford Advisory Board Public Involvement and Communications Committee meeting. I'm in the right spot. Yeah. My name is Mike Birkenbaugh, and I am the Deputy Designated Federal Officer for the Hanford site. As a reminder, this meeting will be conducted in accordance with the requirements of the Federal Advisory Committee Act. Advisory committees have played an important role in shaping programs and policies of the federal government. The Hanford Advisory Board's role provide policy level advice and recommendations concerning the following EM site-specific issues: cleanup activities and environmental restoration, waste and nuclear materials management and disposition, excess facilities, future land use and risk management, and communications and outreach. I appreciate your attendance today, and I look forward to the Hanford Advisory Board's development and submission of constructive, actionable policy level advice on Hanford cleanup. Thank you.
Right, welcome. We've got about 15 people online. Some of them are also in the room, but so when I think of it, I look at you in the room. There are about a dozen of us in the room and about 15 online. So I remember that there are people who are here and you can't see them yet. We are recording this meeting. We record Hanford Advisory Board committee meetings, and those recordings are posted online. So you need to know that we do that. If you are online, would you please use the chat to give us your name and your affiliation, because we keep track of who comes to committee meetings. If you're in the room, there is a sign-in sheet over here in the corner. The incentive to sign in is not me begging you to sign in. It's there are cookies and apples from the local orchard over there, as well as the handouts. So please sign in and enjoy some of the local fruit. These two canister-looking things in the middle of the room are called owls. They're picking up both the audio and the video of this meeting, so the folks who are online can be more engaged. Know that the sensors to pick up the audio are pretty good. So if Mike and I want to have a side conversation, that owl is probably going to pick it up and look at us while we talk. So I suggest keeping your side conversations maybe to the hallway if you don't want to share them with the world. What else, Ryan? I know there's other stuff.
Oh, you're good. Like you said, the audio can pick up pretty good around the room, and the camera will focus in on you when you talk. But make sure that you do speak up a little bit. You're not like whispering or talking kind of quietly, just so folks on the phone can hear you, just to be safe. And people on the Teams call, if you're having trouble hearing us, please put it into the chat and we can workshop it. So if there's any time today where any audio issues happen, just message us and let us know. And then as you guys, and for folks in the room, we have an exit right there, and then the other exit is right outside there where you walked in. So there's the two exits. We'll open up the door again for air once the mower is done. And if you guys have to use the restroom, it's just down the hallway to the left. And then during break, if anybody wants to use the vending machine, I can escort you back there. You can get a snack or a drink from the vending machine. But yeah, if you have any questions for me during the day, facility-wise, go ahead and let me know.
Right. Any questions about just meeting room logistics? We've not had a hybrid committee meeting. We did the committee of the whole, so this is a new setup for the HAB, and we're really grateful. Ecology doesn't charge us for the meeting room, and they don't charge us for the tech. So this is a gift of a great meeting room that's not impacting the budget. With that, Dan, you're our vice chair acting as chair.
Yes, correct.
It's to you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Probably would help the folks remote if you say your name before you speak a couple of times, and they get used to your voice and know who you are. The first item on the agenda is reviewing the agenda. Has folks had a chance to review the agenda? Don't have any suggested changes? to the agenda? Hearing none, I guess we'll continue on. The next item is the meeting minutes from April 2022. Have folks had a chance to review the minutes? And are there any suggested changes? Hearing none. Guess I'd like a second to approving the minutes. Got a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. It's done. Minutes are approved. Okay. Just the next thing to do, is to go around the room and
Oh, that's what I forgot to say.
go ahead, Ruth.
If you are in the room and you have your laptop with you, make sure that your mic in Teams is muted and make sure that your computer sound is muted. Because effectively there are 3 microphones in here. The owl is a microphone and your computer has like 2 of them. And we need to let the owl do it because if your microphone is on in Teams or on your laptop, we will get really interesting screechy noises in the room. Yeah, I should have said that earlier. Where were we?
Introductions and overview of the calendar.
Yeah, oh, wrong computer. Sorry, I've got 3 computers in the here and I'm still learning the triplicate thing. Let's do this. All right, we're running a little early. Are there any questions online? If you're online and you want to speak or have a question, let me know in chat. And I will put you in what we call the queue and you'll see it. It'll say queue and that's how we keep track of who wants to talk in between the room and the folks online. So use that chat to raise your hand and let me know that you want in because I want to make sure you get to speak as well. So our first thing is going over the TPA, the Tri-Party Agreement Public Involvement Calendar. So Deanna, before you jump into the nits and twiddles of it, can you talk a little bit about what this thing is for our new members?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So this has been a calendar that has been around for quite some time. Can everyone hear me all right in the room and then online? I know these owls are slick, so.
They should suppress the bell word. Sorry about that.
No
That'll be
worries.
that
Want the glass one. So this has been around for a long time. If you go to hanford.gov, to the external website and just type in the bar public opportunities and scroll to the bottom, we update this monthly. All the agencies receive a copy and collaborate on the update and then we post it. If we have new things coming on and off, sometimes we'll do it mid-month, but normally we try to update this monthly and keep it current. So the front part, the large part where it says events in progress and upcoming, those are things that are either going this month, and you can see it shows a 3-month look ahead from October to December. And then in the right hand, the holding bin, sometimes that's non-existent to very long. It's things that we think are going to be coming up, but we don't really have enough information or maybe a hard date to tell you when that will happen. Completed events, earlier this year, that was very long. I'm glad to see it shortening up a little bit as we've had a very busy public involvement year. And then as you can see below, we have some details about, we try to show the length of the meeting of, the length of the comment period with the arrows, if it's 30, 45 days, 60 days. I believe on one of the WEIR periods, it was 180 days. And then the little white star that denotes that there'll be some type of a public meeting. And then the type of activity, we have a little color chart here at the bottom so you can see gray is something that's just a little different or out of step. Site-wide discharge activity is purple. TPA is yellow and green. Those are the pretty straightforward RECRA Class 1 and 2 and 3 events. If you'll flip over to the back of it, and you'll see this page at the top, we try to keep all the HAB activities up there, and Deborah keeps that well current for us. And then to further explain the color code on the front, you can see these different colors on the back, and those are standard, they just stay there. But I do feel like it does give you quite a bit of good information, especially if you're learning and wanting to get familiar with this. And so, is there anyone here who would like to add anything further or better explain it? It is a collaborative product. Okay, wonderful. Man, that means I talked too long about it. So if we just, thank you, Ruth, you went back to the top. So the first event, we launched that Monday, October 3rd, is the 30-day public feedback period on the Hanford site 5-year plan. You might recall that that launched last year as a pilot program. It came out of the fact that we were having annual priorities meetings, and folks were interested in getting more information. So last year, we worked on putting together something that's not a regulation, it's a best practice to do a 30-day feedback period to bring forth the Hanford Site 5-year plan, talk through the plans for the years. This will be for the years coming up of 2023 through 2027. Look at all the projects that will be worked in what order, and then that helps people to better prepare their comments and perhaps to prepare its advice on the priorities. And Susan, would you agree with that? Thank you. I guess I should look at our Susan Coleman as well, because she's not here. They wanted to add any further comment. We're doing something a little irregular. We did something similar last year, and this year it will be similar on October 20th, the second day of the full HAB meeting. We'll have a presentation.
This is an important document for the HAB. We've had, this is the third revision or fourth revision of it.
There's 3 that I can really think of, but I can't get on my computer to tell you. They're on the.
But I didn't get an email about it on the 3rd.
Well, you didn't get your public notice?
And I don't see it coming from the HAB. I don't see anything in my inbox from it. And I'm on all listservs. So I'm just wondering, was there public outreach when this went live? Because I didn't see it.
We send it out through the Up Here at TPA mailbox. And so did other folks in the room receive it?
Okay.
It went out in the evening,
My
about
bad.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm happy to get one to you. Let me just, I'll make a note of that. I'm just gonna text myself here. Actually, I'll just do that after, 'cause I'll make sure to get her. Yeah, no problem. We want everyone to have that and have plenty of time to look. And then again, on October 20th, this is a little irregular, but we will have the agencies talk through the plan. The regulators will give perspective. There'll be Q&A, and that will be at 11:45 on October 20th. So somewhat similar to last year, we did this in a committee of the whole meeting. This one is a little different.
Last year's was actually significantly different than this year's, but it is at 11:45 on the 20th.
Yes, did you want to add further?
No, I just don't want to equate the two, because how the two happened is just different.
Yes, I agree. Last year, I believe it was a committee of the whole meeting about this time of year.
No, it's probably not worth going into. It was trying to deal with a HAB meeting when we had a packet gap and disagreement on quorum, and there were a lot of other factors that went into that. We made it a public meeting so that the people who weren't yet appointed to the HAB could actually participate. So the public part of it was to enable not yet appointed HAB members to participate in a HAB meeting. So to my knowledge, it wasn't like a public comment kind of meeting. We were trying to manage some bureaucratic stuff that just put the HAB in a bad spot.
Yeah, I think we're waiting on a packet approval this year. So.
Yeah.
And that is something you can look forward to. If anyone needs copies or information, let me know. I can forward it to you. And then Our other item is the TPA 5-year review. We collaborated on that. There was quite a bit of information that went out. And then we also got new posters updated for our public information repositories. We also got one-pagers that were taken out to the libraries to help people better use the TPA and become involved with our public opportunities pages. And really outside of our completed events, that's all I have this go around. It's frequently longer. So I guess I will toss it to Ryan to go over the ecology portions.
Perfect. I don't see Dana on, so I'll go ahead and cover ours. We currently have a comment period that's on the, it's a notice of construction approval order for 241 AP, which was the Tank Farm 24 AP. And then we've got an upcoming comment period. It's a 45-day comment period on an integrated disposal facility. That's going to be December 5th to January 20th. And then sorry, on the notice of construction one that's currently ongoing, that's going to be open through October 21st. And that's all we kind of got ongoing and what we have coming up in the next couple months currently.
And EPA doesn't have anything on the calendar, right? Okay. Checking in with Roberto. Are there questions on anything on the calendar or upcoming online in the room?
Tom Galileo is in queue.
He's online.
Yep.
But I don't, Tom, do you have your hand up? Did I miss
Yes,
something?
actually, a question about the 5-year plan review on October 20th during the HAB meeting. Are we expecting to see a copy of that before the 20th review?
That went out as a mass distribution like any other comment period on the 3rd. So are you signed up for the distribution so you get all the comment period materials? If not, we can work after this meeting. I can make sure you're signed up for those distributions.
Yeah, I didn't see that distribution. I may have missed it, but I would like to see that if possible.
Yeah, Tom, what I can do is I can forward that notice to Josh. He can send it to the HAB distribution list if that's helpful.
Okay, that'd be very helpful.
Anti-Tom bias.
Actually, let's do this in one email so we don't inundate people. We've got to send out an updated agenda for the HAB meeting and we can attach that to that so everybody gets it all at once.
Yes, let's do that.
That's a great idea.
For the HAB meeting, would it be possible to, we've always asked for in addition to what's on here, a list of the cleanup projects that are associated with those years as well. So we can have time to have actionable, forward-looking advice. So we'd be looking 2 or 3 years out. And I don't see any cleanup on here. I see risk reduction. But where's the information that we need to say prioritize cleanup projects as well as risk reduction?
When that comes out, you'll have kind of a placemat to break things out. That should have the information that you're asking for, Tom.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and that is out. So it
Yeah,
will be coming
I'm
out.
Is the placemat out too?
I'm looking,
Yes.
I'm looking at the place.
Okay,
Going
if-
out on the 3rd.
Okay, so if whoever the right person is sends us both the 5-year plan and the placemat, we'll send that out with the agenda as a total package.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will be less confusing.
I was asking because I'm looking at the placemat and I don't see cleanup, I see risk reduction. So that's sort of, risk reduction is absolutely important and should be a priority. Cleanup also needs to be communicated what's coming down the road. So if there's comments coming, we can, and advice, we can prepare for that.
A lot of that is actually kind of the same, reducing risk with cleanup. You know, so it might just be a labeling issue, but a lot of that is because a project is being completed, that risk has been eliminated. So I hope when the presentation comes, I think it'll be very clear to you.
Thanks.
Also, one thing that helps me when I'm looking through and seeing the changes from year to year is I'll take, one placemat, and they're actually a fold so that you can open it up this way. It's not a placemat, they're folded. But you can look at the one and flip it over and go to the next and then go to the next. And they're designed to stay pretty consistent so people can see that year in year. So this one won't be too much different than the last.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
I've got Jen Colburn that wants to jump in. Jen?
Hi, thank you. Just for awareness. I'm getting some feedback. I did drop the events calendar link in the chat. Ruth, if you want to share that out with the team, that is the same content that went out in the public notice. The website is linked there as well, which will have the placement on it. So that is in the chat for folks. Thank you.
Also, it sounds like if a couple of people didn't get this, we're happy to help you, if you didn't get it, to make sure you're signed up for electronic distribution for all the public comment information in all 3 agencies. We can all help you with that. And so I'm glad to help anybody get signed up for that. It's just a quick and easy email. And that's another thing too, maybe in that email, Ruth, if you like, we could send out how to sign up for the distribution in that as well. Just as an
Actually,
idea.
let's put that in the Thursday mailings.
Sure.
We can put either an announcement or we can put a standing thing under public involvement opportunities that says to sign up. So
Oh, I like
we
that.
can do that.
Yeah, so it's
Make
just
sure
there
that
all the
information
time.
gets to Josh and then it's there, you know, for people to see it on a weekly basis too. Because I actually don't think the facilitation team is on the list for some reason, which,
You do have to sign up for it.
yeah,
So-
and I don't get them anymore personally,
Yeah,
but I
Ruth,
don't.
I'll send you there's just a link I can send you, and you can link that on the HAB happenings, and
Okay, let's do
it
that.
takes you right to the sign up sheet. All you have to do is put in your email and it subscribes you to the list.
We'll fix that on Thursday and then everyone will have it.
That's perfect. So Ryan, you'll take care of that and I
Yeah.
won't take that action.
We're doing that right now.
Thank you. He's so fast.
Love it. Other questions, comments? Public involvement calendar.
Ryan, I have a.
Yeah,
Can I
jump in.
Go for it.
The 45-day comment period about the integrated disposal facility, is there a scheduled, I know that January is not on like it goes from December to January. I'm just wondering if there's a scheduled meeting somewhere in there.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, I can't word today, since it's an ecology class 3, I think we're not gonna have a public hearing scheduled, but if there's, if we get requests, we'll consider holding one.
Okay.
I think that'll be the case with this one, like our usual one.
Okay.
Other questions? Any of our folks online? There are 22 people online, so there are more people here than you can physically see. All right. We are running early, Dan. It must be your good leadership. The next thing on the agenda are HAB member self-assessments. Dan, do you want to explain what self-assessments are with this committee before we jump into that, so our new folks can?
Well, my understanding is that people go around and they just talk about their experience in discussing Hanford with the other individuals or meetings that they've set up or been invited to discuss Hanford. I think it just is sort of to give us a feel for what the public, or how receptive the public is to talking about and understanding Hanford. So I guess I could lead off. I met an old friend of my wife's that I wasn't aware of this. Her family grew up in on Hanford, had a ranch, took the buyout, didn't have any choice, and she was very interested in what was going on in Hanford. I was kind of amazed. Usually, folks' eyes glaze over, and some people even self-combust after about five minutes of listening to Hanford. So that was encouraging. And then I think it was Hanford Chalmers did a poetry reading. Valerie Plume, I believe her name is Valerie. I don't remember her name. The book was Plume, and it was very, very interesting. I sent that to her, and in that it had a lot of memories of folks who grew up in Hanford and also worked at Hanford. So there is an interest out there that I've found, but it's not real active. So Anybody else want to do a self-assessment?
I'll jump in. Yeah, Monday afternoon, we had a meeting of the Oregon Hanford Cleanup Board that I helped staff and had some good discussion, and we're in this room. And the video will be available online shortly, but some good discussion and engagement. And then yesterday we did a site tour and got to see, a lot of people got to see the site for the first time, and those of us that have been out there before, it's a big difference out there, especially over at PF Law. It's not really, it doesn't look like a construction site anymore. Now it looks like a facility, and there's drywall up, and it's crazy. Yeah, just reconnecting, being able to travel again, and sort of rebuilding that connection with the place is important.
Other things you've done with your organizations or others related to Hanford that you want to share with the group? Anyone? Mia?
Dan actually brought it up, but I work for Hanford Challenge, and we've had a nuclear waste scholar series, which has been really popular. And as Dan mentioned, Kathleen Flanagan, the poet who grew up in Richland, spoke and read poetry from Plume, her book, and was a really fantastic presentation. Very basic, just great way to learn about this area and what it was like growing up here for her, and then how she kind of processed that through poetry. And so we're on an artist series at the moment where we're inviting artists to speak, and the next speaker is October 14th, and she actually has an art installation at the One Plum Heritage Center showing at the moment, and she's a photographer. She's interviewed people in this area to get oral histories, and then also has video and sound, it all at this art installation. So her name is Nicole Ali, and so we're excited to have her in a couple weeks.
Do we have anybody online who wants to share conversations they've had about Hanford recently? Anyone?
Rose.
Yeah,
Rose.
Rose. Yes, Rose, join us.
Hi, this is Rosemary with the Yakima Nation, and I guess I would like to let people know that it was about a month ago that we did an interview with the Guardian, and it was basically a lot of information about how Hanford has affected Yakima Nation, tribal people. It's a great article. Yeah, like I say, it's the Guardian is the one who did it, so you can find it online. But if folks have opportunity to want to know more about Yakima Nation and our interest at Hanford, that would be a really good article.
Thank you, Rose. And Ryan's put the link to the article in the chat. Simone, what's on your mind?
Hi, good morning. Can folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so Columbia Riverkeeper recently published a story map online, which is like an interactive website, I guess I would describe it as, targeted at youth and folks who haven't really dove into Hanford, and it was kind of like a first-person narrative following a drop of water through Hanford and experiencing the pollution there, and just kind of a different way to talk about the pollution. And we published that story map in English and Spanish as well, and have gotten some really good feedback and are planning on using it in classrooms in the springtime. So that's been pretty cool to do recently.
Thank you, Simone. Anyone else? Looks like Ryan and Simone may be able to publish the link for that as well in chat. So you all can check it out. Other things to share? All right, so Mr. Chair, you get to make a decision. We're running a half an hour early.
Do folks want to push on and adjourn a little earlier, or what's the will of the room? Do we need a break?
It's up to the group.
Why don't we push on one more item and then take a break?
Okay,
Okay, let's do
so next up is open forum.
open forum. I had a item for open forum.
Okay, you want to talk about what open forum is, so folks can, our new folks can understand the insider jargon we have.
Well, my understanding is that it's just anything that's on your mind and what you'd like to see the PIC pick up in the next. One thing that we do need to do is elect a chair and a vice chair. I'm done November 16th. We probably need to plan for that. Will there be another PIC meeting before November 16th?
Before November 16th?
Yes.
Not that I know of. I didn't realize we had to have an election so soon. So
Well,
can we put that in committee business and figure out
sure.
whatever needs to happen next?
Okay.
We'll flag that so we make sure we cover it.
Okay. And just in general, the PIC, I think at this stage is just kind of in a holding pattern. We don't really have any IM groups going that I know of to come up with advice. There's a lot of advice, I think, regarding public involvement that needs to be formulated. And this, I think, is a good place to sort of get a start on that. We'll have a whole bunch of new folks. How many new folks do we have here today?
Well, Mia's new. Rose has her hand up. Rose, was that the wave to say you're new? Rose is incoming. Simone's been with us. Denise Jones has been with us. Matt Hendrickson from Oregon Department of Energy is very new. What, less than 2 weeks?
2 Mondays ago he started.
2 Mondays
He's our
ago.
new PIC guy, so he will be on the board eventually.
Will he be here this afternoon?
No, he's remote.
Oh, okay. Good.
So we have a number of, and I apologize if I've missed folks. I don't intend to. So we have a mixture of people who have only been with the board for maybe a year and a half, and some who are in the membership appointment package that we are hoping will be signed any day now.
Okay. Well, I'll start off. Some time ago, we wrote a piece of advice, 310. And, can you pull that up, Ruth?
Yeah, Tom Galeota has a question. Tom, why don't
Sure.
you ask your question while I dig up the information that Dan wants to talk about. Tom?
Sure, thanks. Just a quick question. I know we've lost quite a number of people from the HAB recently, and I'm wondering what is the current process for bringing them the information that they may have if they requested to stay involved and to stay aware of HAB activities, even though they're not officially on the HAB. Has that been established such that they get meeting announcements and documents to review and so forth that the public would be interested in?
Tom, the easiest thing to do is to send, folks have been contacting Josh or the HAB at Esland email, and we can keep them on the list to get what we call the interested parties list. And the interested parties list gets all of the board announcements, board meeting announcements, and the weekly Thursday updates, so they can see what meetings are coming up. We don't, do we have interested parties list for each of the committees now? At one time we did, and then we stopped doing it.
We haven't had that established. Well, I've been working here, but we can reestablish that.
Yeah, I mean, we were trying not to manage 18 mailing lists, so we consolidated into one interested parties list, because at one time every committee had an interested parties list. So interested parties get all of the board announcements, board meeting announcements, and they get all the committee announcements as well, and the weekly Thursday updates. So
Okay.
yeah, if you want to be on that list, it's a yes. We just need to have your name and your email.
Right. Okay. Yeah, in view of the fact that the public involvement and stakeholder involvement in general has been stressed heavily, actually, by headquarters and by our local folks, I'm wondering if there is any new ideas or any new initiatives that would forward that emphasis into actions. So, is there anything going on that would be new to involve the public in a broader sense now? I'm not aware of anything, but I guess I'm asking the question.
Well, I'm advocating for one, Tom. The Advice 310, the DOE requested a response, and we haven't responded to their request for a response on Advice 310. So I think that's a good starting point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Dan, do you want to continue to talk about 310?
Yes. If I can find my paperwork, I can't read that. Okay. Yeah, point 5 on advice. Yeah, 5 was the tri-party agencies. We asked the tri-party agencies conduct workshops and a visioning process with the public and tribes on Hanford cleanup end states. And the DOE's response, as well as the other 2 members of the tribe, the David Bowen of Ecology and David Inman of EPA, responded that and I'll just read it. Regarding the request to conduct workshops and a visioning process on Hanford cleanup end states, point 5, the agencies regularly conduct such activities. The agencies would be interested in more specific recommendations intended to enhance existing activities. So I guess the open forum, or I thought it was a round robin, we could chime in with what we think would be specific recommendations intended to enhance existing activities for public involvement in the visioning process.
So for those who are new, we're referring to advice number 310. What that means is over the last 28 years, the HAB has issued more than 300 pieces of advice. They look like letters. They're posted, all of the letters and the responses from the tri-party agencies are posted on the website. We can help you find those. In the room, there's a handout of the response to this advice. So that's kind of the, how did we get here part. Advice 310 was focused on public involvement in vision and guiding documents. Sometimes there are not specific regulatory requirements for a specific planning document. And the PIC and the HAB were interested in expressing the board's values around, even if there isn't a requirement, when would you want to do that for a particularly important planning kind of document? Did I characterize that correctly?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. We're kind of careful about how we speak related to the HAB. But for our new folks, that's the Cliff Notes version of this. So Dan's question to the room, you're asking for ideas about how to enhance existing public involvement activities?
Yes. And the formation of an IM team to respond to the DOE tri-party request for a response.
I think some low-hanging fruit might be the adaptive milestones approach, which is the approach itself isn't a TPA requirement for engaging the public. The milestones are, but the approach is important, and what goes into the approach and who has a chance to give input might be something that not at the level of the tank waste task force, but just sort of a focus group, for lack of a better word, might be a way to get better public response and engagement from the documents that are coming out of the agencies, which is really what the PIC is here to help, right? To help the agencies communicate with the public, and that might be an option.
Other ideas? Susan?
Sort of hesitate. I think you're on the right track. There needs to be more public engagement, no question. We've given the same advice over and over again for the past 20-some years about public engagement. And it seems to me that a fundamental requirement for that input back to them is to understand what end states they are planning for and to define that so that, and granted, that may change over time, that end state, but what are they planning for now? And how do these documents that they're issuing or those projects that they are planning fold in to that path to the end state? Because we're at the point where a lot of cleanup has been done and done well. There's no problem there. And I do think that what documents and what work is happening and what challenges they have found with the ongoing projects that they talk about, what challenges they have found, and what are the trade-offs to those challenges. As an example, the high rat count at 324, when they're trying to clean that up, that's very near a populated town. You know, it isn't something that's just esoteric. I mean, it is right near a population, not too far from here. So what is happening with that? And then how does the cleanup of that fit into the end state for that area, which is near and within their 50-mile radius of, apparently that's what they think the most affected people are. So, I mean, there needs to be some definitions. So does that make sense? So that we know kind of where we're going, and there needs to be more actual out in the public. I realize the pandemic and, was a great excuse for not doing things, and rightly so, not to have big meetings, but it's time to move forward now and do that and have those meetings. And sometimes some of the public is going to say, we don't like what you're doing. And it's okay. Just say, I understand. Tell me why. That's what the agencies need to say. Tell me why. Why do you not like it? And then that's how you start a conversation rather than blame this, blame that, and really move forward. What do we all want? We all want a cleaner, safer Hanford. Ultimately, that's what everybody wants. And we can get there through a conversation, and sometimes they'll be a little hard, but, you know, unless somebody throws a rock at you, you can kind of work through it. So anyway, that's my suggestion.
Yeah, we've had an intern at Odo over the summer, and she's going to be continuing on project still going, doing a story map of the end states. And working with DOE right now to get GIS shape files of the different club scenarios, and also the inner area map from the inner area principle document. So that information can be updated, because the club was published in 2000, maybe 99?
No, the first one was 96.
Yeah, so it hasn't been updated as far as public access, and that's a hard document to get through, and it's important.
And another set of documents resulted from the end stage workshops, because I actually facilitated one of those when Shirley Ollinger was manager at the site, and there was a wonderful discussion. It was at the university, and we had where are the documents? So say, here's where we were, and things change. I get that, but here's kind of what the public said at that time. Here's what's happened in the meantime. Here's where we think we need to go. There needs to be that connection in my mind, so that people understand where we've been, what we've talked about, and, you know, at least to me, and the public will come along.
You know, we are at least a professional lifetime away from the club being published.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
someone should probably refresh that.
Right.
So
And understand what its position is in the end state continuum, how we're gonna get there.
I've got some folks online who want to jump in. For our new folks, ODO is Oregon Department of Energy, and CLUP is the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Welcome to acronym land. Tom, and then Ginger.
Is that me? Is that me, Ruth?
Yes. That's
Okay.
Tom. Oh, yes.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry to interrupt again, but I totally agree with what Tom, Cecilia, and Susan were saying. There are some key points to public involvement, the key topics regarding public involvement interaction that we've actually been requesting for some time now and has not really occurred. And that is a concern. But the one, the adaptive milestone approach that Tom mentioned a minute ago is a really hot button issue that we've had a chance to submit comments on already to DOE, and I don't know how those are being processed. Of course, it's just been about a month or so ago. But that is a key change to potentially how Hanford is going to end up being cleaned up, and in the time frame that is allotted for that. I think that needs a lot of discussion and a lot of explanation and support from DOE on how that's really going to work to the benefit of the cleanup effort. The other effort that Susan mentioned is end states. We, again, have been very interested in hearing more about Hanford end states. It has been discussed in the past, as Susan mentioned. That's quite a while ago. Things have changed quite a bit over the last 10 years or so, probably since that time. And I think the public would be very interested in knowing, okay, when Hanford is cleaned up and we relax in our chairs and say, okay, we're done with this effort, what does done mean? And that needs to be explained. The time frame needs to be explained. It's probably one of the most critical items that should be understood by the public as we go forward. The other thing is the 5-year plan. I'm glad that we are having a public meeting and a HAB related meeting on the 20th regarding the 5-year plan. But that is another key topic, I believe, for public involvement and public interest to be addressed. So those 3 topics off the top of my head would also be key to focus on public involvement and interaction. That's the 5-year plan, the end states, and the adaptive milestone approach. Thank you.
So Ginger had typed something into chat, and not everybody can see chat, so she wanted me to read her comment from Ginger. What is required and what constitutes good, inclusive public involvement are often vastly different.
So
Tom, Cecilia.
going back to 310, the response here doesn't match the advice. The advice is specific. It says, conduct workshops and a visioning process with public and tribes on hampered cleanup in states. And the response is, yeah, we do workshops all the time. What do you want to workshop on? The advice says hampered cleanup in states is what we want the workshop on. Right? Is it? So, and I think when we are looking at what we're talking about here, we're talking about end states and decisions that you make to get to end states. We're saying the same thing. We're circling the room, and there's no reason to form an IM team. We're saying the same thing. We've already said what we wanted to say. Let's resubmit 310.
Even though there is an IM team on
a committee of the whole, for
Yeah,
instance.
yeah.
So
One thing that might be helpful is to have somebody from DOE-EM in legacy management give us an overview of the complex-wide DOE approach to end states. And I think that would be useful to have at a HAB meeting, not just a PIC meeting.
So the other thing I will point out, sometimes the TO tri-party agreement agencies respond to advice individually, and you'll get 1, 2, or 3 letters as a response. Sometimes they get together and they write one response and all 3 agencies sign it. The response to this advice was one of those letters that all 3 agencies signed, just from a mechanics thing. So I apologize, I should have caught this on the slide. It's not just a DOE response, it's actually a tri-party response.
I guess our homework to the agencies would be, what do you need other than hampered cleanup in states to know what we're asking for?
Agencies? Would you repeat your question, Tom?
So we asked for a visioning process and workshops with the public and tribes on hampered cleanup in states. And the response is, can you be a little more clear? My brain can't connect how you can be more clear than that. So if you can clarify that statement, that would be helpful.
I'll go. Visioning process. So those are 2 key words for me. And so we've had some great discussion here. I appreciate some of the earlier contributions on how folks were engaging with their constituency, right? And in my mind, this particular committee is a cross-cutting committee. I mean, it's a committee that has a vital role of communicating information to and back from your constituency, right? In fact, that's consistent with the public involvement committee description, and I'm sorry, public involvement communications committee description. And this is one of a few that I've read. They're not all aligned, of course, and I know the HAB is working on that. In part, develop a means for board members to educate and inform the public about HAB's work. And so when I bring that back to 310, what the agencies are asking for here is some additional recommendations on how we communicate that information to the public. There were 3 topics presented that I interpreted as the what. Okay, and I know those are there's energy behind those, good energy behind those. It's the how, and it's this committee's opportunity to develop the how, to make recommendations for how, to facilitate the how. There was a comment about the PIC being in a holding pattern. I don't think the PIC is ever in a holding pattern. It's dynamic, right? It's never really static, because there's always that opportunity to engage with the constituency and get information back. It's a perpetual state. And as I read this, what the agencies are seeking here is some additional recommendations on the how. You made the what clear, it's the how. That's my perspective. Roberto, Brian?
Yeah, so that was also my understanding as well. And I can definitely understand that it doesn't look like we're just repeating with the response that we gave as a whole. But yeah, I don't want to reiterate too much of what Mike has already mentioned, but just trying to get more emphasis on what exactly, how exactly we should deliver it. So I remember there was being mentioning there was mention of the DOE and state management with the HAB. I think that's an opportunity to possibly pursue. If there's any other ideas that we can combine and add on to that with the workshop, I think that might be productive.
Yeah, I largely echo what they said. I can't speak to this too much myself. This was before I stepped into my current position, so I wasn't involved in writing this response. I've been looking at it and trying to understand where it came from, and it's helpful to hear you guys' perspective, so I can't add too much to that right now.
Okay, so if the question is the how as opposed to the what, it makes a lot more sense, and I appreciate that clarification. I think the conversation we've had already, talking about, refreshing the public facing documents, or a fact sheet on the club that's geared towards people reading in whatever year it is now, 2022, as opposed to 1996, would be helpful to bring the new generation of people who care about the site up to speed where we're heading.
Regarding the club, I believe it was updated later in the 90s or early in the 2000s. So I think there has been at least one update to it. And the reason I know is as disclosure. Before I came to the HAB in 98, I worked for EPA and I was the EPA reviewer assigned to review that EIS, which is why I remember it was 96. And it was very, very big.
Yeah. Not an easy document to read.
It put my kids to sleep at night. But there has been at least one revision to it. I don't know if there's been more than that.
Who would do the revision?
It was a DOE environmental impact statement and plan, so I assume it would have been DOE. Susan, your history is better than mine, probably.
I have a little bit of history regarding the club and the HAB, and that time and again, especially surrounding the end state workshops, we were told by the Department of Energy that the club is not a decision document. It is not a decision document. And yet, there are many decisions based on what the club had said. So it was confusing at that time, and maybe that has changed since then. So that I can understand needing to understand the updates. Is it or is it not a decision document? The information generated from the club, generated in the club, has been used to make decisions. And I suspect, depending on the political will of any given decision time, the club is used to support or not support a particular decision or project. So the board would need to know as you move forward, if this is something that you guys want the public to understand, how is this document actually used? Is it a decision document? Is it just a fundamental document that they use and along with other documents to make decisions? It's kind of trying to understand. We need that great flowchart management to understand the importance of this document, because clearly it's important in decisions that are being made about cleanup. So I think that's something that would be very helpful to really understand. How is it used? Is it just supplemental information, or is it really critical in making certain cleanup decisions? in how that process works. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
So Dan, I'm gonna suggest that the group come up with what are the next action items out of this discussion and take a break, and then we have another open forum topic that we could pick up after break.
Okay,
So just sort of wrap this one up,
Yeah.
take a break, and then jump into the next one. So what next steps do you want? That's actually a question for the whole group, not just Dan.
well, from this discussion, a more definitive statement from the tri-parties as to what they're willing to do for an explanation of end state. And for this group to then review that and give them advice on it.
So I'm actually hearing a couple of things. One, specifically regarding end states, what are the tri-party agencies willing to do in terms of information to the board or
To the public.
outreach? Information to the board?
Information outreach to the public.
Okay,
Yeah, I Tom Kelly knows it too, but I was, if the tri-party agencies are gonna come up with a nice fact sheet on end states, and maybe something like the Let's Talk About Hanford would be a good forum to follow up that fact sheet and do some description and maybe a Q&A or a panel to talk about, okay, so what does this actually mean? And then that would be a reference for people who have questions, who can, instead of trying to read the club online, which is not easy, it's in like 16 different PDFs, I think. You could have a one-stop, really nice polished message that says, here's what we're planning for. And a little asterisk that says, by the way, this isn't a binding document, no, it's a living document and all this stuff. But so that way you answer the question, is this a foundational document? Is this a binding document? Is this an arm wave? What is it?
Tom Galeotto.
Yeah, I wrote in chat that the CLUP is comprehensive land use program, but I think it's plan. And in any case, in my last, I'm not intimately familiar with that document because it really hasn't come up. In my 6 years on the board thus far, it hasn't really come up for a detailed discussion. And what has come up numerous times is what is the actual envisioned condition of Hanford when the cleanup is finished, and that means are the reactors going to still be cocooned on their site and restricted from use and access? Are they going to be gone? Or is the B reactor going to be the national site, the museum site that it is now? Is the large area of Hanford and middle of Hanford now as an intermediate waste area still going to be there? I think it is. So there are going to be large portions of land of Hanford site that are going to be unavailable for public use or unavailable in general because of storage of radioactive waste or cocooning of reactors or whatever other restrictions there may be. The idea is when the cleanup is ended, what is the condition of the site? It's not just that document, the CLUP document. It's the overall envisioning of where we're going to end up and what our target is that we're trying to hit with these individual cleanup activities that we're pursuing each year. Thank you.
I think part of the problem though is a lot of those decisions haven't been made yet. The final disposition of the cocoon reactors is still hasn't been decided. They haven't decided whether they're taking the cores and throwing them into ERNF or letting them sit in place and adding to the cocoons. So that's the issue I have with trying to get to that level of
All right, so let's make sure that our speakers are muted.
what we want to avoid is what's happening now at Rocky Flats, and if you're curious about it, the Colorado Physicians for Social Responsibility's got a good video on their site. But they closed that site out, they said, we're done with it, and then all of a sudden, issues have come up as development moves into that area. What we want to do is avoid that here ahead of time.
So, question for the three agencies. Do you understand the ask from this committee regarding the land use plan and end state?
So what I've written down on my notes is essentially an explanation from the TPA for what we can do for information outreach to the public. Some of that involving a fact sheet on the end state, a possible let's talk about Hanford with a Q&A session involved, the clarification about whether or not the club is a decision document or not. Just a side note from EPA's perspective, that the club is not a decision document, but that's further down the road, we can debate about that. And also like other questions such as what is the actual envisioned state for Hanford when it's finished, as a overarching question, as a theme, I suppose. Was there anything else that people would like to add on to that?
Yeah, and if when the agencies are discussing this, there's a brainstorm and they say, hey, this would be a really great topic for a committee of the whole, that would be a good thing too. Just as a way to present the fact sheet and maybe some supporting presentations that go along with it that come out of the deliberation between you guys.
So the PIOs, the public information officers between the tri-party agencies actually have regular meetings. So the odds of that list getting lost are pretty small. Let me suggest that we take a break.
Can I ask a question I'd like to
Yeah.
finish up? Brian, do you have any comment on the question that was presented?
No, exactly what they're
Yeah, hey, I do. So it occurs to me, and perhaps I'm misreading that, but, or misreading what's happening here at the moment, but the agencies have responded with a request for more specific recommendations intended to enhance the existing activities. And so what I'm hearing that's evolved here this morning is that you're responding to that with an ask, as Roberto read it back to you, that's the same ask that the agencies have reached out to the committee. And I think that we're missing the opportunity here to get your recommendations, have you submit those recommendations, and have us look at those as well. I heard what types of information you're looking for, the what, but you still have to answer the ask that's presented here back to the committee, please.
And it's an interesting procedural question is, you know, if we submit something formally in writing, then it has to go through the full board, I think.
What if the people who've expressed an interest in end states, and I am making the grand assumption that those who signed up for the IM team on the end states committee of the whole are interested in end states. That's the assumption I'm making. What if that IM team took a first crack at, these are some things we could recommend? Because we already know they're interested in that, and either brought it to this group, or IM teams can't issue advice. But in a discussion format, the group could say, this is what we're talking about.
There's also some technical things I think we can respond with that I've mentioned in this committee and others in the past that the presenters can do. If you saw that Showa project on 60 Minutes about a virtual Holocaust survivor answering questions virtually, and it turns out that there's more answers than there are questions. So people that are in a room with this image and ask the image questions and the image responds. And so you can have DOE put together something something that's complicated, it's got a lot of facets to it, and you've got this artificial intelligence instrument that can then answer public's questions instead of saying, well, we'll get back to that. They'll have it. I mean, the Shovel project did put that together about a very complex thing, so it can be done. So there may be, and the virtual tours could use a lot of work too. So and there are probably other technical things that I'm not thinking about that we could make a recommendation to the tri-parties for their presentations.
I have a suggestion. Okay, let's do a storm board or something, not around the room, I don't remember what they're called. Because we all have ideas, but none of us speak for the board. And this is the TPA agencies asking the board for input. Right. So if we say, here is a composite of suggestions that came from board members from the PIC. We're not speaking for the board, but we're, maybe giving you some of what you're looking for. Because we don't have enough board meetings, enough PIC meetings, enough members to come up with advice to respond to the advice.
So if the action item were the facilitation team sets up a PIC call, we invite the PIC members, we invite the new folks to the board because they haven't selected their committees yet. We invite the folks who are on the end states committee of the whole planning team. So we're trying to cast a wide net, and we say the purpose of this call is to brainstorm activities in response to this question from the agencies. Knowing that it is not a consensus process, it is a raw gathering of information. I mean, we could do that.
Yeah.
I would suggest not this month. And the answer is yes, we can do that. Would that get us closer to being responsive to your question?
First of all, it's not my question. And I would have to discuss the matter with the agencies first,
Okay.
and then the board chairs. I agree with Tom. I think what we're talking about is we're talking about a process this year, and I want to fully understand what the implications of that are. And when we come back to the agency response, that's what we're working with right now today. So the response to that question that's being presented, or the information that's being presented, I believe should go through the appropriate processes. So I don't think it's appropriate for me to commit that what you just described is a viable approach.
And real quick, the main question I have about that response is intended to enhance existing activities. And there are no existing activities. So we can't enhance something that doesn't exist. Just having an activity about communicating cleanup in end states would be the answer.
But how, Tom? How, folks? How? What mechanisms? How do we reach people? Right? Clearly, the what is there, end states. I think it's the how that's being sought here. This is before me as well. I hear you. Make an effort, right? But what does that effort look like? Right? Is it another email blast? Is it social media? Is it information at a HAB meeting over series? Is there a communications plan campaign? What does that look like? What are the specifics? And I believe that that's what's being requested here, is what are the specifics of how to communicate the what? I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but what I'm hearing back is that the agencies have asked, and some of what I've heard is, well, give us some more information on how to do what we're asking you how to do.
I hear that. I'm trying to keep the ideas high level and sort of policy level. You guys the agencies have PIOs whose job it is to communicate to the public. So we're saying, hey, PIOs whose job it is to communicate to the public, maybe come up with some ideas to communicate some stuff to the public, because I'm not a PIO. I'm a member of a board. It's, you know, I don't want to get into the weeds of you know, the anthropology of communication, because that's not what I do. I'm a hydrogeologist. So I can't answer how. I can throw out some ideas and a fact sheet and a podcast, you know, I can do that, but that's not the answer. That's the agency's job.
I do appreciate what you just said. I want to come back to the purpose of the public involvement in the communications committee. Provides input on public involvement activities and materials. Materials, we're talking about some of the what. Develop means for board members to educate and inform the public about HAB's work. Develop related board advice for consideration by the full board. And I think it's important to bring us back to that, because I believe that that's what's being requested here, is not just of you, but of the committee. We've got almost 36 people on the call today. I know some of us are overhead on the agency side, but there's a wealth of information out there. And it's just not for the people in this room that information should be solicited, or the people on the call. It's the constituency, right? Everybody that's in here as a chair has some constituency where the PIC is represented. What is out there? What information is out there that can help the PIC answer this response as was brought up, and then provide that recommendation to the agency so that we can have something that's actionable.
So is the action item really a two-pronged thing? One is the list that Roberto went over and that discussion among the agencies, and the other is the board process, which starts with an IM team, a manager team, to brainstorm the how to the extent you're able, and the two then meeting back for the conversation in this committee.
Can I ask for a process question for those of us who have been on the board or were involved in the board for a long time? Has this come up where the board responds to an advice, and is that a consensus document? Has this ever happened before?
Help me,
Yes, whatever
ask the question again.
So the board had advice. DOE responded and said, the agency would be interested in more specific recommendations. So how does that communication happen? Is it through consensus or is it through committee? Has that happened before where the board has answered our advice with a question asking for more information?
I don't think it's happened often. Help me.
No, it hasn't. We were told specifically, do not tell us how to do something. Tell us what your expectations are, what your views are, but don't tell us how. That's our job, to figure out the how. That's why this is a little confusing, Mr. Bergerlaw.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I think my recollection of what I had read about telling us how to do something was with respect to technical matters. Yeah, we hire.
Well, this would be
we hire
partly technical
We
matters.
hire how to engage with the community.
Sure,
I don't
how is
think
that not
it's a- I
technical?
don't think
Use
it's a
this
technical
technology,
matter.
use that technology. So it's confusing, that's the only thing I'm saying.
Yeah, thank you for that. I didn't bring up artificial intelligence. I was interested in the remarks on the virtual tour, because that's been pretty successful for us, and I'm a practitioner of continuous improvement, so that was interesting. But what the how here is, from my perspective, is how to engage the community. That's one of the purposes of this committee. And if we don't align collectively, the agencies and this committee, on that fundamental of that this committee isn't empowered to provide constructive, actionable advice on how to communicate with the committee, we're going to have to re-rack and take a look at what the purpose of this committee is, quite frankly.
So I think.
And I'm going to finish. So, and I appreciate the discussion we've had too about the disparity of views between the how with respect to technical matters and how to treat waste, how to clean up, right? We hire world-class contractors for that. And I've often heard that was where some of the pushback germane to how was coming from. But I, quite frankly, would struggle with, let me say it differently, would take exception to anyone on at least the DOE side that said we wouldn't be interested in advice on how we can engage more with the public, especially from this very important committee.
I think that's a great opportunity for you guys,
Yeah.
really, to get some detail and say, this is how we think the public would perceive it. We've tried that in the past historically to try to get a little more detail. This is a great opportunity.
And it's hard to get through consensus.
Yeah.
So I think with this advice, what the PIC was saying was, there is a data gap here. The public is interested in hearing about this topic, and there's silence coming. So that is the actionable advice, is the public wants to hear more from you about this topic. It's not the public wants to hear a podcast about it. It's just something. And if the agencies wanted to come up with something and bring it to the PIC and say, hey, how does this look? And then we can work, instead of working from a vacuum, we can work on a presentation together and you know, even an outline, and then have a dialogue about what might work and brainstorm. But as opposed to trying to come up with a formal response to advice and trying to figure out whether that's a consensus document and whether what laws apply to it and all this. If we were able to sort of meet halfway and say, you know, there's an interest in talking about end states, bring what you think might work to us, and we'll say, hey, that's great.
So what if this response to advice is actually an opportunity to trigger a discussion that hasn't always happened with the HAB, but in this case, this is a trigger for, we need to keep talking about this? Okay, I'm making an assumption here. The pieces that you all bring as HAB members, you talked about in HAB self-assessments. A lot of you said, I talked to this person, I had this meeting, I'm doing this series with artists, I'm doing, you know, the ecology, you know, conversations. The gifts you bring to that conversation are the awareness of, how do I effectively communicate with members of my organization or members of my government agency, or that's, in some terms, that's kind of your technical knowledge, even though we don't call it that. You know that your membership doesn't reply to email, but they'll show up if you have an ice cream social, right? So what does that mean for telling this story? And so is there a way then to set up the next conversation of the PIC that you know the how of, how do I reach the people I know and I work with, to meld that with what the agencies are doing about how do we figure out what an end state is for something this complicated? So my challenge to you is, what does that mean for the next meeting, and what are each of the pieces of the people in this room and online bringing to that conversation? Because we're kind of in a catch-22. Well, if you do this, then I can do that, and if I do this, then you can do that. Yeah. Why don't we just short circuit that and say, what's the next conversation look like, and who's bringing the pieces? Because we know Susan's bringing the others. That, and I want to get you to break.
Okay, sounds good to me.
But it does mean a conversation, or at least thinking on behalf of the committee of, you know, what works for my folks? What are the mechanisms that I can reach my people? You don't have to be a PIO. You can go back and ask the people at Odo who do that and say, well, what works in Oregon?
And go into it with the mindset of, here's how we can do it, not here's why we can't.
Yes.
Seriously. I mean, we can figure it out, really.
So we can put this on the next agenda, and you're gonna get asked the question, How do your people like to get information and engage?
And really putting it on the agenda is responding to the response. Is,
Yeah.
you know, we're having the visioning workshop in the PIC, which
Gotta
is
start
what we
somewhere.
asked for in the first place. So, yeah, as long as the agencies can support that, then let's get it done.
And while you're doing that, the agencies are gonna talk about, you know, what's it look like as we try to figure out what are those questions and answers.
But we need to cast a wide net when we're inviting people to the PIC meeting, not just board members. If we want it to be a real visioning process and workshop.
Committee meetings are open to the public. You are welcome to invite who you think will help.
Okay.
We good for a break?
Okay.
Let's go till 10:45. We have one more topic in open forum and committee business. So break till 10:45. All right, let's gather up again. If you're in the back of the room, you are welcome to come to the table. We're not segregating stuff here. Gary, before we go to Ryan's open forum topic, I did warn Gary I was gonna put him on the spot. Talk about the deadline for orientation and the bus tour and what you need, because it's a hard deadline, folks.
Yes. We're excited to have orientation on October 18th. It's a great opportunity to get people on the right foot and also for existing members to be able to start welcoming in new people into the group. So we're excited about this opportunity, and we've done yeoman's work in trying to get a bus tour involved with it as well, because not only do we want to talk about Hanford, we want you to look at Hanford and see it with your own eyes. But I need something from you in order to facilitate that. I need you to email me your name as it appears on your driver's license. And I think the deadline is Friday. Because I need that to get that to security to process for badging and things like that. And we're not going to have the capability to do walk-up badging. So I need to have that information by Friday. And as it appears on your driver's license, gary.younger@rl.doe.gov, or send it to Ruth and she'll send it to me. Everybody has Ruth's contact, Ruth or Josh. They'll get it to me. Because I want as many people as possible to show up for that tour and see a lot of the progress we've been making over the past few years. Another thing also is there is a dress code for that. And it's not a difficult dress code, but you must wear sturdy clothes. So you must have pants. You must have sleeves on a shirt that's at least 4 inches, sturdy shoes. I know there's a couple of other things.
No open-toed shoes.
Thank you. And while we're not planning to do any walking around out on site, we will be stopping at Hammer and we will be taking a group photo. So that's also something to look forward to as well. First HAB group photo we've had in 2 or 3 years. So come one, come all. We also normally restrict participation to 1 person per stakeholder group. We are relaxing that for the orientation. But same thing, I've got to have those names by Friday, please. That's all I have. Micah, is there anything that you think I need to add that I missed?
I need to add something. As part of my contacting all of the new people, they were told that they would be getting an email with all the details regarding orientation and requested to respond when they get that email, to respond with the security information, the badging information. I don't believe they've gotten that email talking about orientation and requesting that security information for the tour. So they may be, they may be expecting that before they provide, in order, as a trigger point to providing that security information for the tour. So
I think it was on happening.
yeah, but if they don't read that, I mean, they've all, when I was talking to them all, pretty much everybody said, oh yeah, I've been getting tons of messages. And it's like, yeah, I'm kind of wading my way through it. And so they may have missed it. But I was under the impression that we're going to be getting a specific email talking to orientation with the details of orientation. Where to be, the whole, bus tour, times, all that stuff.
We'll take care of that. I think we do have the orientation agenda that's going to go out this week as well. So.
As soon as I get DOE approval on the orientation agenda, it goes out.
I just want to make sure that especially
Yes.
for the newbies, for the new people that are not on this call and involved, that they may be anticipating that agenda and email as the trigger point for getting you the security information.
Got it. Thank you.
Can I add something about the dress code? Whenever you're going to a nuclear facility, wear non-synthetic clothes if you can, cotton primarily, and make sure your stuff's been dried with a dryer sheet or fabric softener or something like that. Any clothing that can build up static electricity will collect airborne radioactive contamination. So particularly if you go to a boiling water reactor like Unit 2 out here, because there's a noble gas that gets out of the steam turbines, there's a tiny amount of radioactive rubidium in the air. And that stuff will plate out on any place on your clothes that has static electricity, primarily elbows and knees. So this is bitter experience, personal experience, but it's generally known in nuclear workers, you wear cotton. And that's just because of the static electricity, and it attracts airborne anything, dust, dirt of any kind. If that happens to be radioactive, and you'll get that. And including naturally occurring radon and thoron decay products, which are airborne, will build up. And then you go through the contamination monitor, so anyway, that, although you say we're not going to get out of the bus, if you're going to a nuclear facility, make sure you don't have clothing that has any static charge potential. So.
Thank you, Dan. Also,
I would say for lunch on orientation days, bring your own sack lunch. There is a food truck that should be out there from like 10:30 to noon on Tuesdays. But just bring your own sack lunch. If you forget it, then we could probably get you a lunch over there, or you can go across the street and get one between the orientation and the bus tour. But plan to bring your own sack lunch.
Actually, footnote, the logistics are the bus is going to come here when we're done with the morning session at orientation. Lunch is actually not going to be here. The bus is going to take the group to get the badges over at the DOE building. I can't remember which one.
2430.
Thank you.
Stevens.
So we've reserved conference rooms at the DOE building so people can eat lunch while they're doing the queue to get their badges. So the reason for the sack lunch is there is not a lot of time to run to wherever to get lunch. It's a people moving thing. So the reason for the sack lunch is so you can eat over in those conference rooms. We can still do the badging for however many people come. The bus holds 56, 55. So if it's a full bus, that might take a few minutes. The bus will come back here where you started and where you parked your car. So That's the midday logistic. You will end up back here where your car is.
The coach has a restroom in there. So it will be helpful as we're going along because we are planning no stops out on site, which is a good thing.
Questions from anybody online? We have 22 people online, just so you all know, there's people. Questions about orientation, buses, sack lunches? All right, before we go to committee business, Ryan, you had something else for open forum, correct?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up. As some of you have heard, we've got the Red 9, the site-wide permit that's going to go out for a permit renewal. The last I heard is that we're on track to have a deadline to get stuff submitted, I think May of next year. So the comment period is not going to start, the public involvement kind of component comment periods aren't going to start until I think it was January of 2024. That being said, I wanted to bring to the PIC, I would love, whether it's, maybe possibly recommending advice, or we just get together and have like a roundtable at a PIC meeting. I'd love to gather at least the PIC together to gather your feedback on public involvement. We could probably share, at that point, what we're planning and what we're planning to do for PI from ecology's end for the Rev 9, but we'd also love to hear your feedback on what we're planning and any, additions you might have to suggest and just that kind of conversation. So that's not in the official work plan, but I'd like to propose that we have that conversation maybe at the next PIC meeting, possibly I think it's February is the next PIC meeting, but I wanted to run that by the PIC committee, as this is a pretty ripe kind of public involvement opportunity since, it's Rev 9, it's, revision 9, sorry, it's the site-wide permit, last time we issued this, it was, I think 10 or 15 years ago, and I think ecology had like 4,000 or 5,000 comments that we received on it. So it's going to be a really big public involvement haul from our team, and we'd love to get feedback and collaborate with the HAB/PIC on this whole area.
Is there anything else we need to cover for open forum? So Dan, I suggest we move to committee business.
Okey dokey.
I've got two things I know. Looking at the IM team list, I wanted to talk about elections and next PIC meeting. So I guess that's 3. It's all yours.
Well, let's start with trying to figure out what the leadership will be. My term on the HAB ends November 16th. I guess the question is, do you have to be a member of the HAB to be a committee officer? Okay, so we definitely have to figure out how to get some folks elected before November 16th. Could we do that as part of the HAB meeting as a whole?
It's usually done
Yeah.
in committee.
Uh-huh.
We did hold online elections for the other committees during COVID because we had to.
Yeah.
It's unusual to do it that way.
May I?
Yeah, jump in here.
Yes, I do have a federal registered notice for the committee of the whole, which allows us to have elections as we need it. I think as of now, we are looking at having elections for chair and vice chair. If we need to throw an extra election on there, we have the space to do that because I've already made that registered notice.
We could just schedule a PIC call as well. But the tricky part is, we don't know who's eligible to vote or to run to nominate, be nominated. We don't know who's going to be on the board or when, and that's the hard part. Are we still anticipating packets by the end of the month?
We're gonna get them when we get them. And since that question is out there, let me go on and address that, because I know that there's a lot of interest in that. Probably no more, probably there isn't anyone who's more interested in it than I am, because I want to get this project wrapped up. Because of many of the changes that we had early in the year, what it did is it caused us to miss every deadline that we needed to hit to have an October 1st appointment date. So the good thing is that headquarters has the packet. It's going through the process. It has a lot of visibility from a lot of senior officials. And I get emails regularly on process. And it just is what it is, because we missed every single deadline. One of them we missed by almost 2.5 months. And that was because there were so many changes going on that's the way it turned out. The good thing is we have mitigations in place for the next board. So we should hopefully never talk about packet gaps again. We've already started recruitment for the next packet, and with our goal of getting it submitted to headquarters by February. And so we will have our folks appointed next year long before October 1st. My goal is Labor Day. So we recognize how much turmoil this causes. Moving some dates around in our benefit is really going to help out. Ryan Roberto and I talk regularly about what's going on with the recruitment package and who's going where and what the actual vacancies are. So we're comfortable there with the outreach that we're doing. We expect to get a lot of applications in by the end of this month, and that will give us plenty of time to process, to do interviews if we have multiple candidates for a seat. We've taken the lessons learned from last couple of years, and I think we have a really good path forward. I'm not holding my breath on what day the packet will be approved. We have a lot of interim appointment letters out to folks, and Dan, apologize, yours came late, but you do have it. And we are going to continue to do business, have meetings as we can. We're going to defer big decisions until we actually do have all of the people appointed. Quorum and is based on the number of appointed people. I don't know, I don't have my sheet in front of me that tells me what our appointed number is right now, but it will be that number half plus 1. So I think that's going to be in the neighborhood of about a dozen or 13 people for a quorum. When votes come to a head, we'll decide how we're going to want to deal with it at that time, whether we want to defer that or we want to go with a smaller quorum to get it done. It's something that I wish we were doing differently. We have, like I said, we have steps in place to never have to deal with this problem again. I appreciate everybody's patience. And as soon as I get that email that says, here are your appointment letters, I will be sending those out and making phone calls as quickly as I possibly can.
Can we do this? Can we publish a list of eligible members now and call for nominations for PIC chair and vice chair?
We can do it based on the current PIC membership
What would be our
list.
drop dead date before, November 16th?
What if we scheduled a PIC call on November 10th?
Okay,
It's a Thursday. Just a call, and that gives the packets enough time to hopefully work their way through. We'll know who the members are and who can stand for a nomination. Because if it's just people who are either extended or in the last year's packet, we're gonna have a slim pool.
yeah.
The packet the last 2 years has literally been signed the day before happening.
Right.
Because Murphy and his laws are active.
But that gives us a little bit of grace time before, it's a week before Dan turns off, so he can still have a lame duck session.
Wow.
Can you support a call on the 10th?
Yes, I should be able to.
So we have to have a Fed in the,
Yeah.
in the mix. Okay. So we'll set up that call on the 10th. It will probably be, do you all have a PIO meeting on that day?
I was gonna say the 8th and 9th I have down as committee placeholders.
Yes.
Yeah. We're working on RAP and HSEP for those 2 days.
We don't have agency PIO meeting on the 10th. Our meeting is on the 3rd, so the 10th we don't have a PIO.
Okay, so we could do something like 10 in the morning.
Yeah, I can speak for Roberta.
I'm looking at Gary, because
Yeah.
Gary and I have a standing 8:30, but we can move that around if we need to.
You know, I think that could probably work. And either Mike or I will be there.
Okay,
On the 10th,
on the Thursday, the 10th of November.
I cannot, I won't be working on the 10th of November.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, for,
Isn't that a holiday because November 11th is Veterans Day?
Good question. Only for some
Okay.
who are working on the 11th. I think the 10th becomes their in lieu of holiday.
oh,
That's
yeah,
right.
it does, doesn't it? Okay, we will figure something out for that week. Let's not do it now because I just realized my staff is off that day.
Okay. Yes, sometime that week would be.
Okay, we'll figure it out for that week.
And can we send out a notice to everyone who's either a current member or invited to the orientation? That they are welcome to put their names in the hat, in the ring for chair and vice chair.
We can add that to the weekly update too.
And the latest agenda that I saw for the orientation yesterday includes toward at the end of the morning is each of the committee chairs get to plug their committee. So there's your opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, we will figure that out. High probability of Monday afternoon, but we'll figure it out.
And then you have most.
Move on to IN teams now, we got this resolved.
Yeah, IM team. So if you don't have a list of all the current IM teams, there is a handout over here. It barely fits on one page.
Oh, sure.
Ruth, can I add something about this
Oh, yes,
election
please do.
process? Because everybody on the board is essentially a member of the PIC committee. Any current board member could nominate someone to be chair or vice chair of this committee. Any board member, not, they don't have to be a member of
Anyone
PIC.
that's not already on the EIC. Yes.
Yes. Yes, so that, historically, that's, okay.
Yeah. And if you want the backstory about why that's the case, I can tell you later. But yeah.
Well, the 242 evaporator, IN team, I don't think that needs to be viable
That's the
anymore.
only big one.
Oh, are we just
So
talking
the-
about PIC or we're going through all of them?
Actually, my thought process was just to deal with the PIC ones.
Okay.
And then the other committees,
other
if you're on other
committees deal with
committees, you're gonna
Sure.
see this list again, okay?
This one here. Okay, well,
So what we did was we took off the folks who have rotated off the board. So that's why this list is different than the last one you saw. So let's start with EJ, Dan.
say again?
Let's start with the environmental justice one.
Okay.
Steve and I.
Yeah, it's down to Tom and Steve and we call for more. And I would like to put out a call or have a call put out at the HAB meeting for more.
Can you put the
Oh, yeah,
list on the
Yeah, let
Teams
me-
page? That's the request.
thank you.
There we go.
So for environmental justice, the proposal is to keep it as an IM team and invite expanded participation.
Yes.
Okay. GAO report on tank closure. What do you want to do with that one?
I'm confused here. I thought we would be just doing PIC IM teams and the other committees would be doing their IM teams.
I think the GAO report on tank closure might be a
Is that a typo?
It seems like tanks.
Okay.
No, there was a,
Or is there a public engagement part of that?
there was a public engagement
Okay.
part that Jeff was driving.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
there is? Okay.
Uh,
Well, how close are we to talking about tank closure? I mean, it seems like it's just a distant thing at this point.
Let's shelve that one and figure out what the recommendation is and figure out who needs to restart.
Okay. And then the last one for PIC is down towards the bottom. Principles for effective public involvement. All but one member of that committee rotated off the board. And we actually don't have a representative from Heart of America named on it.
They refused to go back on that.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks. Too many things in my head.
Oh.
So it's. What do you want to do with it?
It seems redundant with what we were talking about earlier. So I say a fresh start. Take this one off.
Okay. So that leaves us with the environmental justice IM team that remains for PIC. And we'll invite folks to participate. For those of you who are still learning how we operate in HABland, there's a Microsoft Teams account that all HAB members have access to. And there are teams within teams. And we create those groups so each committee has a place to store documents, to have offline conversations. And we create groups, teams, if you will, for each IM team. So they have a place to store documents and have conversations. So for each of these IM teams, there is a place for those groups of people to interact. And it's because of the way Teams works, if you're on the IM team, you can get into that room, if you will. They're not, it's a function of the software. So if you want to be on an IM team, the answer is yes, we will put you on the IM team. But you have to tell us so that we tag you with that group in that room. Roberto.
I just wanted to point out that Rose has a question, but I guess Tom answered it. Never mind.
So yes, if you want to join an IM team, it literally is, if you tell the committee chair and you tell HAB at Esland, you're on. I don't think we've ever said no.
So
Okay.
question for the IM teams that are being shut down or shelved temporarily or permanently. Will those teams' environments still be preserved if the information needs to get accessed in the future?
I don't think we've deleted any teams that are done.
You
have
just
we?
lock them and call it done?
What do we do with that, Josh?
It's never come up before, so we will walk, I suppose, or just leave it, I don't know.
So for like, when the, the IM team doing cleanup priorities advice, the last time around, there was a place for them to work. When they were done with their work, did we just leave that there in Teams? So right now, they still live there. We haven't.
Check retentions before we delete anything.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it seems to me we shouldn't be deleting stuff.
Right.
Just as a matter of public records.
It's cleanup priorities, I mean, it's gonna get used again, coming year, and it's empty anyways.
Okay.
Use it.
Okay. Yeah, and some IM teams use the space and others don't, but that's a different problem. Let's make a note to add Denise to the Teams channel. Oh, you're already ahead of me. You're always ahead of me. All right. So for those of you who are going to other committee meetings, you will see this list again, and we will ask the question about those IM teams for those committees. You've been warned. Any other question on IM teams or?
Doesn't the committee of the whole still have an IM team on end states?
It does. We sort of call it a work group, but yeah, the agenda planning team is second on the list.
Okay, I see it now. Thank you.
It's still pretty big, even though folks rotated off. And I think I have a lag in my chat. I saw something from Rose on one computer, but not on the other.
She wants to be added to the Teams channel.
Okay.
I'm sure Josh is.
Okay, cool. I'm not used to working with 3 screens where one of them is over there. That's okay. The last thing on the agenda, Dan, unless there's something I've missed, is topics for the next PIC meeting, which I believe is February in the provisional work plan. We heard 2 things from this meeting with the follow-up to advice 310 and that conversation that is ongoing. Each of you bringing your pieces. We had Ryan's request for input. Ryan, is there that input going to be timely enough for Rev 9?
But that's what I was actually chatting with my staff about, because like I said, we're gonna get our documents, I think everything kind of get submitted, and we're gonna start gearing it up, I think spring next year, and then the comment period's not gonna start till probably January or early of 2024. So we have all of the rest of this year, all of next year. I think ideally we'd like to get some kind of feedback stuff, 5 or 6 months before the end of next year, so that way if we get good feedback, we have time to incorporate it and work it into our PI.
So February roughly fits into that. Okay. All right. So if you can send us, I don't know, a couple of questions to spark the discussion, that might help. Or if you have something that you want the group to react to.
Yeah, I think at that point, I'm starting to put together our communications plan for Rev 9. By February, I should have a skeleton of something put together, and we can share stuff from that for plans, and then I can probably queue up some questions to ask you guys. And if you guys have any questions or random questions you have of us, that'd be great too.
Okay, cool. There's normally the review of the public involvement calendar, the HAB self-assessments, who have you been talking to, what things you've been talking about Hanford. Those are things that are normal. Are there other things you want to work on? Or are the advice 310 and the Rev 9 meaty enough for your current crystal ball?
What was the tentative concept in the work plan?
Pardon?
What was the tentative concept in the work plan for that day?
Let me look it up.
It just says TBD.
Okay.
Does it say TBD? Okay.
Yeah.
That works.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
It might be fun to have a brief on the administrative record and using it. Since we're gonna have a whole new class of folks that are gonna be in, and that's sort of the main way that the public can access information.
I actually gave her a brief on just that subject today when I came in, going through my documents, a brief on how to use the record, so I thought maybe that might come up.
And I might ask that question on tomorrow, is it tomorrow already? About should something like that go in the member notebook? So, cool.
Another process question, if we stick around for the tanks meeting, do we have to sign up when we come in?
Now you're signed in, now you're signed in for the rest of the day. So
Okay, thank you.
Dan, what else do we need to cover?
Well, it would be nice to hear some pitches to the new members to join the PIC. If you come up with a pickup line.
That's it?
The pickup line.
Oh, tell me more.
Great.
Tell me more.
It's one thought I had on it is to pitch it is it's kind of you're paying your dues for taking up the airspace. I mean, the technical stuff, the tanks and the budget and the plateau, those are all really interesting technical things. The getting out the word to the public is kind of a way of paying your dues for being on those sexy committees.
Public engagement is sexy.
Well, I'm glad you think so. I was a member of the United Nations Association. We had a saying that said that program builds membership. Without program, you don't get any membership. And PIC is the program of the HAB.
Well, so during the orientation, you'll have a chance to pitch your pickup line to the new members. So
what's my pickup line?
You just said it.
Yeah, we could have something a little bit more engaging too. That would be great. But still, I do really feel like the PIC is the way you pay for your time on the airwaves.
So like a pickup game?
Yeah.
All right. I just can't wait to see what you're going to do for rap. It's a musical analogy?
Oh, dear.
No. Okay. All right. Is there anything else we need to cover before we adjourn? Anyone online? Last questions? We still have 20 people online, folks.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, some of those are in the room here, aren't they?
Okay, so there might be 6 of us in the room,
Okay, so it's still.
but still, okay, Deanna and Mike. Deanna.
I just had a thought that when we get into the 10-place meeting, if there are more interest or questions about the 5-year plan, during that TPA calendar review, I failed to ask you to pull up the events calendar and show people how to work that, which might be really helpful for our new members. You know, how to go to Hanford.gov and find all the public comment opportunities, the HAB meetings.
Wrong one.
Thank you.
Okay, so Hanford.gov is easy to remember.
So there, if you'll see, there's a rotating banner. The farthest one on the right, if we click on that one, you see those little dots go by. That's where we have the 5-year plan. And if you click on that, you can go to learn more. It's in the bottom left. There we go. And then that's going in both English and Spanish. We can see the 30-day feedback period plus the October 20th meeting. And then there are links. You can see if you'll click on the link that says the 5-year plan toward the top, it's the first line underlined. We made a flipping book out of the placemat. So you can print it out either way, but it will flip for you so you can see it the way it's supposed to be. So special thanks to our graphic artists who helped us do something nice like that. And then if you don't mind just going back one click through. Perfect. And on the third line down, you'll see that there's a link to the web page right there, that website page. So here's a special 5-year plan. It's designated to have the English and the Spanish translation. It shows how these 5-year plans play into the EM Strategic Vision 10-year plan. It has many of the relevant fact sheets that are currently linked, and then tells you a little more about the October 20th meeting. And also there, that's where last year, there was a survey, and we got probably more emails than responses to the survey, maybe under 20 survey responses coming through. People asked for the email address, so this year we made the email box so people can submit their thoughts on it, and that's all out there on the events calendar. And so if any more questions come up in Pink Waste, that's where it is, and you can walk folks through it if they also didn't get the electronic delivery. And I should call that up last time because it's helpful once you see how to get to Hanford.gov and click through and find those things, it's pretty easy.
The other thing, Michelle. I thought.
The events calendar.
Got the events calendar. I was looking for the link to the HAB page.
Well, I think you have to type that in the search bar.
Okay, because this is.
Yeah, you're searching.
Look for outreach. You should have a tab for outreach.
Yes, and then the HAB page is another wonderful resource.
So.
Yeah, the view on other people's computers are a little different.
Yeah, that's what's throwing me.
For some reason, this browser, I think it's because it's being duplicated from the conference room. It's showing the screen a little differently.
Okay.
So you're not crazy.
Okay, good, because I am crazy on other topics, but I'm like, this is not how it looks when I'm on my regular computer. But anyway, I can show you how to navigate the site with the other look to find things, but this is actually going to cause more confusion if I continue to do that. And I don't want to cause more confusion.
Well, one more thing.
Yes.
Topics for next week, and that's the budget for the PIC and the HAB.
What's the budget?
The budget for the PIC and the HAB. I think that should be talked about during a PIC meeting. How much, I mean, the talk is talk and talk is cheap, but when it comes to putting dollars on the project, and that's how we know we've got some work to do to spend those dollars. And it should be talked about before the budget is submitted.
Sorry, are you referencing the Hanford budget or budget specifically for the PIC committee?
The budget, as part of the Hanford budget, there's a budget for the PIC committee, right?
You mean what's in the checking account that we spend on HAB meetings and stuff?
Yeah, have meetings and then the PIC outreach, the public involvement outreach.
How much money do you have to work with? That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Susan, there is a historical perspective on this, and I'm really glad your hand's up.
Yeah, there is a historical perspective. The chair and vice chair of the board, historically, and this is of course before COVID and everything kind of shut down, would work with the Department of Energy after having discussed it with the chair and the vice chair of each committee, looking at the work plan to determine how many meetings they had. And we have historically in the past given advice regarding the HAB budget in total, not just the PIC committee, because it was based on the number of meetings and that sort of thing, that the committees believed that they needed to do their work, as well as the board needed to do the work that they were assigned by the agencies, as well as the work that they developed, that they added to that. And I'm not exactly sure how that's all going to work out now, but it was, nobody on the board gets paid directly from DOE to be on the board. This is a volunteer, but there are expenses for travel, the microphones and that sort of thing, those historically were part of that budget, as well as the meeting rooms and that. And the budget required was determined by the chairs and vice chairs of each committee, gathering information from their committee. And as an EIC, they would tell the chair and vice chair, typically the chair, at least when I was chair, how many meetings do you think you're going to need, blah, 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 and what is the budget that's assigned? So what do you need to, do you need to put advice forward for more advice for facilitation and travel or whatever is expected in that coming year? It was a great meeting, and I don't know whether that continues, but it certainly was something that was helpful to everybody.
Well, Tom, if you're still on the line, have they been doing that in the last 3 years? Tom Galeotto?
The EIC has not been doing that.
I
Okay.
don't see him on right now.
Okay.
I can address that topic if you'd like you to.
Good, because I don't remember it happening in recent years, but.
Yeah, what we're doing now is we have a basic services contract for facilitation and administration, which is, flexible to meet the needs of the board, which means unlike a couple of previous contracts, it's not limited by the number of meetings, which means in theory, we could have as many meetings as we could support. And we don't have the staff to, obviously, to be able to do that continuously. But right now, the schedule that we're running with quarterly board meetings, quarterly committee meetings, we throw in some committees of the whole and some other things, we're good there. Because then we have the back office stuff that we have to deal with as far as transcripts and meeting preparation, stuff like that. As far as travel and things like that, we're working through that. So folks who are out of the area are submitting travel plans and we're approving those. As long as we are, the word I have is reasonable, but that's not a quantification. Right now, as long as we continue along this same type of drumbeat that we have, I think we're going to be just fine. If we go to more meetings and particularly try to do, I think we've also got, we're planning on one meeting next year. And we're looking at having that in Yakima. That's all okay. So as far as what
of it, what gets spent on public outreach, public meetings for the general public at large.
We don't have a line item for that. However, all of these meetings are public, which means
the dog and pony shows on special issues that have been done in the past, like tank closures.
So Dan, are you asking about the budget for public involvement for Hanford in general, not public involvement for the HAB specifically?
Right, both, asking about both. Because it costs money to put these things on, and how much money do we have? How often can we put them on? So again, program builds membership. You get to get out to the distant communities, Seattle, Portland, Hood River, Spokane, et cetera. It costs money to do that, and if there's no money to do that, then it doesn't get done. And there's no point in giving advice on public outreach. Sure. There's not gonna be any public outreach being done because there's no money to do it.
I don't have a dollar figure. I hear what you're saying, Dan, and I don't have a dollar figure. There may be one that I haven't seen and we can ask what my upper limit is. Like I said, the only thing I can say is reasonable. And reasonable is unquantifiable. But it is a good question and I'll work to get you an answer.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I'm me and my trusty book, for those of you who have experienced me and my trusty book, I'm gonna throw this out there. According to the operating guide rules, which is at one of our 3 regulatory documents, it says annual funding levels will be determined through annual consultation between the board and the tri-party agencies and will be based upon a proposed budget presented by the board. The board will determine how to prioritize expenditures within its total annual budget. So the way Susan's referred, the way it used to be, is the way it's supposed to be. So we should be in a driving seat of saying, of identifying and
How many meetings we need?
of managing the budget. We need to be honest. And that's signed off by headquarters, by the DFO. So just as a data point.
Ginger, I saw your hand. Probably, I don't know where the owl is looking. For anybody that's new on the phone, I'm Ginger Wireman. I'm a communications and engagement consultant here at Northwest Nuclear Waste Program. I think it would be perfectly reasonable to go back and look at some data from the past and see how much we spent. And I think it would be great to try and get back to that because obviously with cost of living and COVID, et cetera, starting at the last year, we did real actual public outreach that was much broader and inclusive. We had public meetings, generally large public meetings more than once a year in Seattle, Portland, Hood River, and the Tri-Cities on a regular basis. The HAB had 6 public meetings a year, full HAB, one of which was out of town. And I think looking at those data points as a starting number and then evaluating and revising from there is a perfectly reasonable place to be because we have new and additional requirements, both at the state level and I think at the federal level, to do more engagement, not less engagement, because we are supposed to be addressing environmental justice issues. So that means we should probably be spending more money, doing a better and broader job than retreating from what we used to do in the past.
Rose has a question. How were those meetings attended? How well were they attended?
Oh gosh, most of them were attended well. Sometimes very, very well, and probably much to the chagrin of some of the people that didn't like getting scolded for perceived lack of action. But I mean, we regularly filled hotel ballrooms or the big corner ballrooms at the Seattle Center, the state building, Oregon State Office building, big conference room, which was probably 2 or 3 times as big as this, the Best Western Ballroom in Hood River. And I can't, the least attended meetings, unless there was a worker health issue, the least attended meetings were probably in the Tri-Cities because people here feel like they know what's going on.
Yeah.
However, if there had been a recent exposure in the tank farms, those meetings would be very, very full.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think I was unfortunately on my phone earlier when there was the how to do it better thing. And there are many ways that we could be doing better, more general public engagement, whether it's the PIOs supporting the HAB and how to actually carry that out, or whether it's us doing it better, doing it more and differently, the techniques are out there, the training is out there. I've had a lot of it with the standards of the International Association for Public Participation. There's a whole spectrum of engagement and best practices. I believe Ruth has had a lot of their training as well. And, you know, there's just, the door is wide open for what we could do. We just need to decide how much we actually care and want to. I mean, you know, the biggest tenet is go where people are.
Right.
Don't try to create something out of whole cloth and then pray people will show up. You know, what we would be better off doing is figuring out partnerships and combining with existing events like farmers markets and having a table at a farmers market. And if it means some of us need to flex our schedules and work on a Saturday morning, then that would be effective public participation.
Thank you. Okay,
The next meeting will be in this room of the Tanks Committee, starting at 1. Last words, Mr. Roberto.
Yeah, Pat mentioned this earlier.
That's the last word.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Roberto.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but last year, or was it earlier this year, if time's relative, EPA shared a workload document of the scope of responsibilities for all of the regulators at the Hanford office, EPA Hanford office. And we are currently updating that, and we'll be sharing it with the HAB in the near future.
If you have it by next week, we can put it in a notebook.
Fingers crossed, no, no promises.
Yeah. Next week's gonna be fast.
Yeah.
well, is there anything else for the good of the order?
I have a question. Earlier, there was some discussion about a catchphrase to generate interest in PIC involvement. Has the committee given any thought to essential elements of what that pitch would be beyond the catchphrase? We've got roughly 15 minutes here. I'd be interested to know what some of your thoughts are regarding how to generate interest in not just the PIC, but also something that we can carry forward to the other committees. How to actively engage these new folks that are coming on board.
To the new folks.
Yes, sir.
That's a good.
Maybe the existing folks as well, right? So.
Well, maybe asking folks what their backgrounds and interests are, the new folks, what their backgrounds and interests are, and then spinning off of that. If there's engineers, if there's budget people, if there's public relations people, if there's people with just a general interest. I don't know, it's a tough one. They're already somewhat engaged because they applied for the board. And then there's the question of, when you go out and recruit, are you going to organizations and the organizations go to their members, or are you going to individual members of organizations to ask them to be on the board?
We're going to the organization.
Okay. It might be helpful to know what organizations in general you've gone to, what kinds of organizations, or even the names of the organizations, in order to figure out where these folks are coming from. Whether it's river protection or airshed or economic interest.
They're going to be in our MOU in part, right? So that's a great starting place, and we can provide some additional information. I don't understand.
Oh, there's some people.
We've got some folks who want to join in the conversation.
Yeah, we're not.
I was telling them.
Thank you for that. I'll be mindful of the time. Good news is we don't have to have it all set in stone with respect to how to solicit participation in a given committee by October 18th. I think that's an ongoing effort. So I would be interested in knowing what we could learn from PIC and those recommendations, or maybe what PIC could learn from other committees as they develop recommendations for how to generate interest.
Okay.
I've got Steve and Rose and Hugh. Steve Anderson, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I think along those lines, just the reminder statements. Obviously, this is Hanford is the largest economic impact to our area. So people that live here, not only economic, but environmental impact to the area beyond the Tri-Cities. So just letting people know that this is their opportunity and forum in which to add feedback and learn about what actually is happening. So, I mean, just the fundamentals, I guess, is what I'm expressing.
Rose.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. I just wanted to say really quickly that Yakima Nation has been a part of this group, I believe, since its inception, and I've been kind of, I've been a part of it, but not a part of it. I guess I should say I've worked very closely with the people who were a part of this organization, and I've just recently, in the last year and a half, been assigned to actually start participating a little bit more, and I'm actually I'm going to be on, well, I'm in the packet, let's put it that way. And that all being said, I really didn't know what this group did. For as long as I've kind of been around this group, I really didn't know what this group did. And I think that, for me anyway, I think that it would be very advantageous to take the time within the larger meeting to be able to let people know what this group really does and how they can be a part of this group in advance, even some of the issues that they feel need to be put out there in the public. Because I've seen 3 or 4 different areas, environmental justice and various things that that this group is dealing with. I'm also part of other committees within this group, but I could definitely see this as being kind of a conduit for kind of being able to get information out there to the public that I would like to see out there. And so maybe a blurb on really what this group does to the entire group will give them a better idea of how they could effectively participate, and maybe they would want to participate more if they really better understood. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it.
Other advice for Dan for the pitch for the October 18th orientation? Actually, let me back up. Are you able to make the morning session at orientation?
Yes.
Because making the assumption that you're going to do the pitch, but I don't know if you're going to be here.
Yes, and my plan was just to start with the guiding documents about what the PIC is charged with, and then move on from there. So I would be open to pitches that I could make.
The design is each committee chair has 5 minutes.
That's quite a bit of words. I mean, it's 360 words a minute, so that's what, 1,500 words.
And they're bookended by the bus showing.
But they're also, if you're right, going on the tour, you also have a captive audience.
Yes, that's true too. So I guess I would also invite everybody who is a loyal member of the PIC to, in informal conversations with new members, invite them to the PIC. Ask them questions about themselves and their interests, and say, oh, well, the PIC is going to do this for you, or that for you. So it's an individual effort as well as a pitch, an official pitch. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Well, the motion to adjourn doesn't need a second.
Actually, because we operate by consensus, all you gotta do is close it.
What if somebody doesn't want to close it? What do I do then?
They'll speak up.
Okay, I'm closing it. It's your opportunity. You've got all lunch hour.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
So, ecology folks, where can we go for lunch in an hour?
What day are we on? Wednesday? There